This story is about Cyan Vert, the best assassin of the continent, who meets a pitiful death after having been betrayed by his own brother, whom he had trusted all his life. Let us see how this story unfolds. We see a man on his knees thinking, "Live for the clan, that is what my father told me." What he meant was that I should not desire anything, and should stay by my brother's side. We see injured and dead knights all done by this man. Someone approaches him saying, as expected of that man's brother, "This is a sight to behold. This is our MC, Cyan Vert." The other guy is Boris. They seem to know each other. In anger, Cyan brings out his dagger engulfed in black fog, asking for the reason for all this, wondering if it was the Emperor's orders. Boris had heard rumors about this black fog. Watching Cyan engulfed in that aura, Boris realized that he was an assassin from the mist. This mist organization is like a fog to our Knights of Light. I will report this to the higher-ups that I got rid of an impure being affiliated with the heathens. Cyan tells him to go ahead and tell them, if you have a mouth left to do that after this. I guarantee this, you won't have a tooth remaining after I am done with you. Boris is not scared of any secret power, because there is a 9-star magic barrier cast here. Cyan was thinking about how he could get out of here, and reveal the culprit behind this with my brother. He shouts, "This barrier, I will tear it to bits." Hearing a voice telling him to stop all this, when he looks at the person, he remembers his father's words, "Your brother Askell is now extending the clan. His success is your success." He loses all hope when he realizes the man behind this betrayal was his own brother. With despair, he asks what is the meaning of all this. Askell tells him, "You have done well enough for the clan, for the people, and for me. So I am just trying to take the burden off your shoulders." Cyan is confused, if he did something wrong to deserve this. Askell shouts, "That ominous fog, you are nothing but a murderer, you can't be called a human anymore. You have fooled us long enough. Can you really say that you don't know your sins?" Cyan is confused about the stuff his brother is saying, and thinks, the succession fight within the Empire, the Demon King army's raid, the war to unify the continent. I helped you achieve everything, because serving you was my life. But now you are abandoning me. The thought of working like a dog for 20 years for Askell fills him up with rage. Now he does not care, if even his body breaks down, he will use all his strength, if it means he can destroy this man. He released his leftover aura, which was still enough to engulf the whole area. He prepares himself for one final attack saying, the hero is trying to kill his younger brother because he's afraid. How shameful. He charges towards him looking for a single chance, so he can stab his weak point. As he is about to connect, a barrier blocks him made by Boris. Askell turns around and stabs Cyan with his sword. He tells Cyan, he wanted to give him a painless death since you are my brother, but you have shown your true colors. I knew from the start, you are just a demon, that is why I never trusted you. He kicks Cyan away from his sword and leaves his brother to die. As Cyan was near his end, he thought, what a foolish life I have lived. His eyes had no life in them. Even after losing consciousness, he attempts one more attack jumping behind Askell. He is so close to doing it, but Askell swings his blade, destroying Cyan forever. We hear a voice saying, "Young Master Cyan," as we see a boy covered in sweat. A girl saying, "How long do you intend to sleep for? Get it together, you need to get ready, young master." He comes to his senses, is surprised by looking at the girl named Emily from his past. It has been 20 years since I last saw her, she looks exactly the same. He looks around to realize this was the room he used to live in when he was younger. As he touches his face he is shocked, he is back to being a child. Emily tells him, "You are stalling for time because you don't want to go for training, make up your mind and get going." He is confused, what is this training she is talking about? As he comes out, he is certain that he is back in the duchy in the past. He thinks, this is just like when your life flashes before your death. He suddenly remembered, this happened 27 years ago. It was the year before I entered the academy. Every year, the duchy holds a dual training session. My father, who is the duke, makes it a very big deal. My opponent is Cyan Vert. He is the same age as me, my half-brother. His mother, Margaret Urzeth, is the Duke's wife. Thanks to that, Kraz received a lot more attention, even though we were both the youngest children. I was a bastard son, and after being mocked in this fight, I became a laughingstock to everyone. This duel was the reason my father stopped paying any attention to me. His maid whispers to him, "Why don't you just surrender rather than being humiliated?" As he pulls out his rapier, he thinks, "Why is it so heavy? My strength is the same when I was this age." This sensation, it's definitely not a dream, nor is my life flashing before my eyes. And there are no magic spells that can do this either. But he is still doubtful. If he really came back to the past, then maybe I can change my future. As Krantz stands in front mocking him, he looks at his father, telling them to begin. Krantz rushes forward, taking advantage of Cyan not looking at him. Krantz swings his sword, but for Cyan it was so slow, he dodges it with a slight movement. Krantz recovers from his failed attempt and swing again, only to get his sword thrown away by Cyan. He kicks him in the legs, making him fall down from the pain. Their parents are surprised. Cyan thinks, now if I just put my sword up to his throat, this duel is over. But that's not enough. When I was this age, Krantz always bullied me as his form of entertainment. So I need to stomp him down so that he can never try to do anything to me again. He lifts his leg to kick Krantz again, thinking, in this life, I will pave a path of my own for myself. After that, we see Krantz unconscious on the ground, resulting in Cyan's victory of the duel. Cyan is escorted to meet the Duke, accompanied by a high-class knight, Yoken. We see mother of Krantz coming from the opposite direction. Cyan pisses her off by asking about how Krantz is doing. She says, "How can you ask that after beating your brother like that?" Cyan just shrugs it off, saying that is how duels are. Cyan hears her saying, "This is why bastards should not be treated like a legitimate child, like mother, like son." And she starts abusing and disrespecting Cyan and his mother. In the moment of rage, only thought inside Cyan's head was, should I kill her? But he holds back, thinking, I know how to make her suffer. I am going to torture her slowly. And he says, you know, I am going to the academy as well along with Krantz. With a crazy look he says, I am sure you want your son to graduate with his limbs intact. I guess you are not that worried about him. She gets annoyed and tries to shoot Cyan, but the knight stops her midway, saying, the Duke has called for him. I don't think we can delay anymore. Cyan smiles in the back, thinking, the Duke's orders are absolute. I am being protected by the knight who was given that order. We see Cyan greeting the Duke. He thinks, the world calls him by a different name, Guardian of the Continent, the hero who stopped the invasion of demons for a long time. But my memories of him are different. Duke says, your eyes precisely followed the sword and dodged it. The moment Krantz ran at you, you looked straight at the path of the swinging sword, and turned your body to dodge it. When did you learn how to wield the sword? Cyan tells him that he just practices every night on his own. Duke asks him, you never had any interest in swords, so why did you hide such excellent skills? You really went all out at taking down Krantz. But what you did after that was unnecessary. Cyan realized that Duke is trying to get a feel of what he is capable of and says, I wanted to prove myself. That I am better than Krantz, even though we shared the same blood, which is also what I concluded as the meaning of the duel. Duke suddenly starts smiling and says, excellent, a clear and concise answer that shows off your level-headedness. I did not know you were so talented. You will become a great, reliable support for the Askell one day. Cyan falls into despair, thinking about what will happen in the future he came from. He realized Duke is obsessed with Askell, so he will destroy everything that Askell tried to do. When Duke asks him, tell me, if he wants something, and Cyan tells him, he wants to enter the battlefront. When he goes back, his maid starts panicking, hearing about that, because that place is filled with wicked and terrifying demonic beasts. Velia's the western feud of the Ashif Empire. This is the place called the battlefront, even in that the Limia Valley, that can be called the front lines, is a battlefield where fights with demons have been going for hundreds of years. Because of that, his father puts a condition, to become worthy of going to that place in 1 month. He thinks, he has to raise his physical strength in the given time, he is still weak. Luckily, he still has the same combat sense as he had before regressing. He can sense a little bit of magic from his body. If trained well enough, he can make good use of it. Someone suddenly enters the room yelling his name. A blue-haired girl named Alice. She grabs Cyan by the collar and starts yelling if he had gone crazy after that little duel he won. She tells him to follow her to the rooftop. In there, she tells him, "I will let you go the battlefront if you can endure my attacks for 3 minutes." With a serious face she asks, "Are you after the family's title?" When receiving no answer from Cyan, she thinks that must be true and asks Cyan to draw his sword. Cyan draws his sword thinking, first the duel with Krantz, this whole day was chaotic. She rushes forward to attack. Cyan deflects it, shocking Alice. She takes a step back and thinks, a rapier has a very light blade, yet he cleanly parried off my longsword's attack. She is now even more annoyed and rushes forward with a frenzy of attacks. She jumps into the air to strike, but Cyan again deflects it, and his sword comes closer to hitting Alice. After realizing it, Cyan twists his arm to avoid that. He thinks, that could have been bad. Miss Swordsmanship skills, thick fog, mostly consist of skills meant to kill immediately. It is hard to fight without killing because my strength is lacking. Are those 3 minutes still not over? I am weak, so I am imbuing the sword with my mana, but I am almost at my limit. Then we see Alice, casting 6-star magic, Aqua Blade. She is filled with rage now. Cyan knows he would not be able to block that. He trusts in his plan and charges forward, thinking, please come out, Yoken. And it works out. As they were about to clash, Grand Knight comes in to stop them both and says, Miss Alice, you are being too harsh against a much younger opponent. Alice comes to her senses, hugs Cyan and apologies, and tells him that she just wanted to stop him from going to the battlefield. Cyan smiles and thinks, this very like her, she always tries so hard with everything. Alice was the elite of the elites, who got an S in all subjects. And her beauty was astounding, so people called her God's child. She was mentioned as the future guardian of the continent along with Ascovert, but not long after joining the Knights of Light, she was killed. Cyan hugs her tightly and promises to protect her this time. Alice turns around and asks Yoken what he was doing here. The Duke has already left for the war. He tells her he is just following orders to protect the young master for a while. I cannot tell you, because it was supposed to be done in secret. Cyan had already sensed his presence since he left the Duke's office. After that tiring fight, he falls asleep in her sister's arms. We see Cyan doing push-ups to increase his strength. After a lot of effort, 10 is still his limit. He feels sad thinking about his body from the older days. His maid comes in saying, a package has arrived from Miss Alice. It is something with really awful smell. It is Hellhound's blood. It's a rare item that can only be found in Lemia Valley, but the rumors that it's in the black market were true. This thing is considered poisonous because of its sickening smell, as well as feeling of burning UPN consumption, but it actually permanently increases the mana and strength of the person who consumes it. Cyan grabs the bowl and drinks it. His eyes starts glowing red. He stands and goes out for a walk out in the open. He was waiting for a moment when Yoken was not there for his daily report. In a divine revelation, Asko found about an ancient temple hidden in these mountains. He scans the ground for concentrated mana and breaks open the ground, revealing the entrance to the temple. Cyan starts going inside the cave. This place was an ancient temple that served the god of light, Lumindal, until the history on this land was erased because of the god-demon war that happened 300 years ago. After reaching inside, he can see the owner of this temple. It's this glowing sword. Before the foundation, humanity finally succeeds in driving out the Demon King's army from Belias. The demons were stronger, but the humans found ancient relics called God's weaponry, allowing them to win. One of those weapons was a holy sword blessed by the god of light. This sword, which was deemed the main cause of humanity's victory against the demons. And I would die by this sword in the future, which was possessed by Ascovert. Maybe this has something to do with my regression. He tosses the sword, but nothing happens, so he just kicks the sword and walks away pissed. Once you walk past the light, there is a shadow that feels rather otherworldly. He looks at something dark, which normally resembles the holy sword's shadow. But it's not a shadow. Where there is light, there must be darkness too. It was a pathway to a hidden room. When Cyan walks in, he looks at a glowing red sword and grabs the demonic sword Kirim. Upon holding it, his aura starts going wild, but he manages to subdue it. A dark entity appears, saying, "Child, you have no fear. Don't you know what it means to have awoken me?" Dark aura starts growing, and it tries to take over Cyan's body. Cyan grabs him midway. Demon is surprised about how can she be touched. Cyan smiles and says, "I told you, this sword is mine." She tries to attack and steps back, asking, "If you are the successor, why do I feel Eru's aura from you?" Cyan replies, "Yes, I am the successor of Eru. Your master is back, bow down." She gets pissed and tries to attack him again. Cyan uses demonic sword control to knock her to the ground. When she tries to resist again, Cyan uses that skill repeatedly until she gives in. After that, he decides to go back. Kirim says, "It's been so long since I had fresh air," and turns into a ghost-like form. She asks for her new master's name and if he was really the chosen one. Cyan tells her, "Yes, I was, in my past life." Kirim is more confused hearing that. Cyan stands in front of the holy sword and cuts off its hilt, saying, "Maybe this will make things a bit interesting in the future." It has already been a month since his promise. We see him greeting the Duke. When asked if he is still determined to go to the battlefront, he replies, "My heart already lies at the battlefront." Duke asks his knight to open a magic scroll to summon a demonic beast, Hellhound. This is a test to see how capable Cyan is. Yulkin thinks about the time when Cyan asked him to duel. He was bored of swinging his sword in the air. He wanted to get a sense of a real fight. Yulkin tells him that for someone his age, Krantz would be a better choice. Cyan replies, "I am not sure why, but he runs away every time he sees me." Yulkin agrees to fight with his sword sheath, and he will only defend. With a serious face, Cyan tells him, "Whatever happens, from this point on, do not tell father about it, it's an order." Cyan charges in. Yulkin is surprised by how heavy that attack was from a 10-year-old. Cyan disappears from his vision and quickly moves behind Yulkin in the air. After trading few more attacks, Cyan says, "As I thought, I cannot win against you yet," and thanks him for helping out. We see Yulkin is sweating and appreciating the growth of Cyan. In the present, Hellhound charges towards Cyan. He dodges it, but he knows that fighting this will be too much for him, so it must end as quickly as possible. He hits the beast and jumps into the air, throwing his sword, aiming for the head to successfully kill it. Cyan stands before the dead beast thinking, "This is such a waste. I could have filled so many bottles with this much blood." Duke is impressed by Cyan's skill and progress and tells him, "I will see you at the battlefront." Kirim speaks, "Master, do I look like a kitchen knife to you? Why don't you use me? I need blood to gain strength." Cyan replies, "Do not worry, soon, I am going to use you to my heart's content."